Hey, 7th and 8th graders. Today, your objective is to get the 3 vocabulary words, all sections filled out in your 21st century vocabulary, and then you're going to get that submitted to me through Google Classroom before the end of class. And I'll give you work time today. So we just have a short lesson here before we go, and then you have the rest of the time to get that completed. Make sure you have all 4 squares of each section filled in. With perception or perceive, you need to put your own information in there as well. So I gave you an example, but you have the ability to put the definition into your own terms, come up with your own description, add a keyword. So you can add something to each section of that to make it your own. And then plus be sure that on that first screen, you have put your name on there. I will be checking those to make sure that you return everything you need for that. My responses and what you need to do to improve them are going to be down in this speaker notes area. So you have a speaker's notes area that you will see in your document, and that is where I will communicate back and forth with you. As I said, this is a document we're going to be using through the rest of the semester. So if you need to go back and watch those videos, you have the ability to do that by looking at the previous assignment. But we're going to move on today to interpretation. Okay. And here's just a little video for you to think about with interpretation. Okay, so Ellen DeGeneres, that's her, a little bit younger, but think about how the music playing, there are certain things that we interpret certain ways because they're sort of built in to what we understand. When we see the color red in that situation, we think something's bad. And then we have the sound that also makes it sound that way. You have sounds that are joyous, sounds that sound evil or scary. Think about movies. If you change the background of the sound that was happening during that movie piece, it might change your interpretation of what you're seeing. So we're going to be delving more into that through this unit. Interpretation, the definition's really simple. It's just the way that something is explained. And so when someone puts music behind something or they have their interpretation, we have to understand that there are a lot of things behind what they're trying to accomplish. And perception and interpretation kind of go together. So an interpretation is the way that something is explained. Think about another language, okay? If somebody is an interpreter, they are changing one language to another. So if you're speaking English and interpreting it to Spanish, or if someone, let's say someone said something to you in Spanish and someone who knew both languages interpreted it for you, you have to trust that that person really knows what they're talking about, okay? You have to trust that that person who heard it in Spanish and knows English as well is giving you a proper interpretation. And so that's where this ties in from information. There are many times when we take the word of an organization or a person, and there has to be a reason that we are trusting the information that they're providing to us. If we look at something where this comes in to be really important, it is in the interpretation of our laws. So for example, the Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, that was written by our forefathers, but it has been interpreted into laws and regulations throughout time. And actually, right now, we are in a huge challenge with the Second Amendment. And there are two sides that have very strong feelings about what is going on. But we depend on the judges and the scholars and our politicians to interpret this into a law that is fair and right for us. And that's why paying attention to the news, and when you receive that gift of being able to vote, it's so important that you know what's going on in the world. And you can go out and look up a lot of different pictures. And I know that this is very hard to see, but the media and various groups and organizations, they are also interpreting the Second Amendment and trying to put forth their own thoughts and measures on that. So you need to be aware that when you're looking in the news or you're reading a funny meme or you're seeing a YouTube video where somebody is going off, that is an interpretation, and it is based on many things that are not always necessarily factual. So that's why it's important that you know what's going on and you can make your own interpretation as well. In this cartoon, it says, no, the narrator didn't say that, he said this. Well, it's really hard to know unless you are well versed on both sides of the story. And in the case of interpretation with languages, you're really putting a lot of trust into somebody else. And anytime we take information from a source, we're putting a lot of trust in the fact that they're really telling us everything there is to know. I'm only responsible for what I say. I am not responsible for what you understand. Think about that. Do you really think that that's true? in our journalism organization, I think it's really important that people are saying things in a way that people are really going to understand, and also not be telling just one side of the story. And we do have a responsibility that we understand the way our language or our actions are being interpreted. Some synonyms we have here for interpretation or interpret are analysis, a clarification, explanation, a meaning, a translation. The opposite of that, again, is the same with our previous perception, is misconception and misunderstanding, which is what we're going to talk about next. What I said and what you heard, they can often be quite opposite things. And sometimes the way we say things can be interpreted a wrong way. I don't want to offend you, but I'm afraid I'm going to anyway. You start off with offending, you obviously know you're going to offend them. So, all right, next word's misconception. It's a common misconception, but it's always been three fishes. And quite often, having a misconception is so easy to do. We can hear something wrong. Think about the last time that you didn't really understand the directions on. You heard one thing about the instructions on homework, and it really was something else. This happens all the time. So our definition is a view or opinion that is incorrect because it is based on faulty thinking or understanding. So faulty understanding. And sometimes it can happen by accident. It's not always an intention type of thing. So I didn't bring this up earlier, but think about a shy student. Some people can interpret somebody's actions of not talking to one another as being stuck up, okay? When really that person is maybe just shy, okay? That's a misconception that is based on, or a false conclusion that they came to about a person's character when they didn't really know. They just interpreted certain actions to mean that they're stuck up. They have a misconception now, and that person now, you have a dismal look at their character because of this misinterpretation. So this is where interpretation is so important. Think about if that happened to you, like some action that you had that was misinterpreted, and then that came to be about something that's at the core of your character. Misconceptions come in with myths and facts, or truth, true and false, all right? At one point in time, we thought the earth was flat, and those ideas came from the fact of what people knew at the time, all right? It was a misconception based on the fact that they didn't have access to a lot of other information. And so, as we talked about before, things will change over time as we have more knowledge, as we have more information. So you want to keep that in mind. Synonyms for misconception are delusion, error, falsehood, illusion, misbelief, myth, misunderstanding. The opposite of that is truth, certainty, or fact. I'm not going to play these for you right now. I might get that in a little clip later because they are kind of funny, so I'll do that separately. Your job now is to get those three definitions, all 4 sections of the notes, filled out and turned in by the end of class. And that's all I have for you today. Next week, we are moving on to some very interesting activities that go along with this so we can have a deeper understanding of these 3 terms. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.